Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's story. In this episode, after days of silence, Linda visits Quang's mother to check on her, bringing fruit, kindness, and the gentle comfort the old woman had been longing for. Their simple morning visit unexpectedly opens the door to a deeper family bond. And later that evening, as Quang and his mother join Linda for dinner, a surprising conversation changes everything, from chopping vegetables together under warm kitchen light to a heartfelt proposal about their future. This chapter reveals not just affection, but intention, hope. Stay until the end, because what Quang's mother says tonight might just redefine all their lives. And don't forget to subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us. The early morning air was sharp enough to sting the skin, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones before the sun has the strength to push it back. Linda stepped through the wooden gate of Quang's mother's house, her breath turning into pale mist as she exhaled. In her hands was a small basket filled with fresh fruits, pomelos, star apples, and a few mandarins she'd picked on her way. Despite the biting cold, she carried a gentle smile. Near the dry duck pen, Quang's mother, her back slightly hunched, hands trembling from age and weather, was struggling to scatter feed and release the ducks to roam. The weak sunlight filtered through the fog, creating a silver haze around her. Linda quickened her steps. "Auntie, what are you doing out here in this cold?" she asked, voice warm enough to thaw the frost around them. Quang's mother turned, startled for half a second, and then her face brightened with relief. The past few days had been so silent, no calls, no visits, that she had begun imagining the worst. "Linda, oh dear, I thought something happened to you. You young folks don't know how to worry us elders." Linda bowed slightly, apologetic, but still smiling. "My phone battery died while I was visiting my coworker. I didn't realize until late. I'm sorry for making you anxious." She lifted the basket. "I brought some fruit for you, and I wanted to check how you're doing. It's gotten so cold lately." The old woman's shoulders relaxed. She gestured toward the house. Come in. Your hands must be freezing." Inside, the little home was simple and dim, the only warmth coming from a small kettle of water simmering on a clay stove. Quang's mother poured some into 2 cups, pushing one toward Linda with motherly insistence. "You're wearing such a thin shirt," she sighed. "City girls don't know how cruel the countryside cold can be." Linda laughed softly. "I layered inside, don't worry. It's just the outside that looks thin." They sat close together, sipping steaming water. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was gentle, like a warm blanket slowly settling over 2 people who understood one another. Linda peeled a tangerine, offering a segment to Quang's mother. "Quang told me he's been busy at work again," Linda said. "He came home really late last night." "He always does," the old woman murmured, worry creeping into her voice. "He works himself to the point of exhaustion. The city drains the life out of him. Every time he comes home, I see more tiredness in his eyes." Linda nodded thoughtfully. "He's been talking about taking some time off, maybe coming back here more often." A small spark flickered in the old woman's expression. Hope, quiet but unmistakable. The two women continued talking about the weather, the mandarins ripening early this season, the last time Linda visited, and how Quang used to run barefoot around the duck pen when he was little. As they spoke, the cold air outside began to feel far away. What had been days of loneliness for Quang's mother slowly softened into comfort. The sight of Linda sitting there, calm, kind, familiar, seemed to ease something deep inside her, like warm water trickling into cracks that had long been dry. By late afternoon, the sky turned a soft rose color, and that's when Quang returned. He stepped into the yard, surprised to see his mother already waiting at the door. "Mom, why are you standing here?" "I was hoping to catch Linda before she left, but she already went home," his mother replied. "She brought fruits and kept me company. Such a sweet child." Quang blinked. "Did she? I didn't know she'd come today." They walked inside together, and Quang's mother poured him warm water as well, watching him closely. "Mom," he said after a moment, "I'm thinking of taking a few days off. Linda's been a bit overwhelmed lately. I want to help her around the house." His mother paused, eyebrows rising. Quang had never been the type to take leave voluntarily. He usually clung to work, trying to prove himself in that harsh, competitive company. "You really care for that girl, don't you?" she asked gently. "Of course I do," Quang said, almost without thinking. His mother sighed in relief. "Then listen to me, son. Leave that company. Don't go back." Quang stiffened. "Mom, no." Her voice was firm, filled with years of hidden fear. "That job is sucking the life out of you. Your hair is going gray before mine. Every time you go for those endless shifts, I'm afraid you'll collapse somewhere without anyone knowing." She looked him straight in the eyes. "Stop chasing the city dreams. They aren't worth your health." Quang sat silently. His mother continued, her tone gentler now. "Come back here. We can build another small farm. Something simple. Something near Linda's house so you can take care of her. You can live a life that's peaceful, not one that tears you apart." Quang swallowed. For the first time in months, he felt the truth in his mother's words. The city had worn him down. The pressure, the exhaustion, the endless deadlines, they all clung to him like invisible chains. He asked quietly, "You really think Linda and I could build something here?" His mother smiled, wrinkles deepening like the folds of a long-forgotten quilt. "I see it already. You two working side by side. A quiet household. Maybe a wedding someday." Quang froze. "Wedding?" "Yes," she said naturally, as though discussing the weather. "I've been thinking about it for a long time. Linda is gentle, hardworking, and thoughtful. I want to talk to both of you later about arranging a wedding when the time is right." The air stilled. For Quang, the thought brought a sudden rush of warmth. Linda's shy smile, her laughter, her soft steps around the garden. His mother continued, voice filled with certainty. "She's the kind of daughter-in-law any mother would be blessed to have." The conversation stretched late into the evening, each word weaving together years of worry, dreams, and long-awaited acceptance. Outside, the wind howled, but inside the small home, something much warmer grew. Hope. And that hope only deepened when they later arrived at Linda's home. Night had already fallen by the time Quang and his mother reached Linda's house. The air carried the earthy smell of damp soil and cooking smoke drifting from neighboring homes. Warm yellow light glowed through Linda's windows, soft and steady, like a quiet invitation. As they stepped through the gate, Quang's mother stopped for a moment, admiring everything with a proud, tender smile. The newly installed wooden gate, smooth, sturdy, still smelling faintly of fresh varnish, was Quang's recent handiwork. He had built it during one of his few days off, using only simple tools and stubborn determination. "You did all this?" his mother asked, her voice filled with both surprise and adoration. Quang scratched the back of his neck, embarrassed. "Well, Linda needed it. The old gate wouldn't close properly." His mother's eyes softened further. "She must feel so safe with you around." Before he could answer, Linda opened the door. She blinked in surprise upon seeing them standing there in the dark. "Auntie? Quang, why didn't you tell me you were coming?" she asked, quickly stepping aside to let them in. Inside, the house was filled with the warmth of home. A small pot simmered on the stove, filling the air with the aroma of ginger, pork, and fresh herbs. Linda wiped her hands on her apron, slightly flustered. "I was just starting to make dinner," she said. "I didn't expect guests, but you're always welcome." Quang's mother waved a hand. "Nonsense, dear. We're the ones showing up without notice. Let us help instead." Before Linda could protest, Quang had already rolled up his sleeves. "I'll help with the vegetables," he said simply. Linda paused. "You will?" His mother chuckled. "My son rarely touches a knife unless it's to open instant noodles." Quang shot her a look, but Linda was smiling now, soft, pleased, touched in a way she didn't hide. They moved around the small kitchen in an unspoken rhythm. Linda rinsed the vegetables. Quang chopped. His mother seasoned the meat with the precision only years of experience could bring. Flour dusted the tabletop as they prepared sticky rice, steamed it, and sliced freshly harvested vegetables from Linda's tiny garden. A gentle quietness settled over them, broken only by sizzling pans and light conversation. For Quang's mother, each small action, each shared task, felt like confirmation. Like the universe itself was nodding along to the idea she'd carried quietly for months. The three of them together looked right, familiar, meant to be. While cutting herbs, she glanced up and watched the younger two. Quang, usually stern and quiet around others, was unusually soft with Linda. He leaned close when she showed him how to slice lemongrass. He listened to her talk about her coworker who brought homemade pickles to the office. He even laughed, a gentle, warm sound she hadn't heard from him in far too long. And Linda, for all her shyness, seemed completely at ease. She scolded Quang lightly when he chopped too slowly. She handed him more garlic. She moved around him in that small kitchen like the song they shared had no beginning and no end. The food came together beautifully. Sticky rice steamed to glossy perfection. Stir-fried vegetables bright and fragrant. Chunks of tender pork simmered in ginger broth. Linda set the table while Quang arranged chopsticks. He moved with a kind of instinct, placing the bowls in the exact way Linda liked them. When they finally sat down to eat, Quang's mother felt her heart swell. She couldn't remember the last time she'd seen her son this relaxed. Shoulders not tensed, eyes not glazed with exhaustion. Linda served him a bowl of soup, and he accepted it wordlessly, the way a husband might accept food from a wife who'd done it 1,000 times. Everything felt natural, too natural to ignore. "Linda," Quang's mother said gently as she lifted her chopsticks, "your cooking is wonderful. This reminds me of the meals Quang used to love when he was young." Linda blushed lightly. "I'm glad you like it. I'm not very good, but I try." "Try?" Quang interrupted. "You cook better than most restaurants in the city." Linda almost dropped her spoon at the unexpected praise. His mother smiled knowingly. She waited until they had eaten halfway through the meal, letting the warmth of food and the comfort of companionship melt whatever remaining distance lingered between them. The timing had to be right for what she wanted to say next. When the moment finally felt settled and peaceful, she placed her chopsticks down. "I want to talk to both of you about something important." Quang looked up immediately, worry flickering across his face. Linda froze. "You two," she continued slowly, "have been through a lot. You've taken care of each other when you were tired, when you were sick, when life got too heavy. I've seen the way you worry for each other, the way you show up for each other." Linda stared at the table, cheeks warm. "And," his mother added, "I'm not getting any younger. My biggest wish is to see my son happy, truly happy." Quang shifted, clearing his throat. His mother leaned forward. "Linda, what would you think if, when the time is right, we held a wedding for you and Quang?" The spoon slipped from Linda's fingers, clinking softly against the wooden table. Her eyes widened. Quang froze, hand halfway to his cup. The room turned breathlessly quiet, like the air itself was waiting for Linda's reaction. Linda opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "A wedding? For us?" "Yes," Quang's mother said warmly. "I've been thinking about it for a long time. You're a good girl, Linda. And the way you and Quang treat each other, it's rare, sincere, and exactly what a family should feel like." Quang finally found his voice. "Mom." But she raised a hand gently. "You don't have to decide anything right now. I'm not rushing you. I just want you to know," she said, eyes falling on Linda again, "that if you two ever decide to build a future together, I will support you with all my heart. And I would be honored to call you my daughter-in-law." Linda's eyes glistened, overwhelmed with emotion, surprise, gratitude, disbelief, all tangled together. Quang looked at her quietly, his expression softening in a way only she ever seemed to bring out of him. A moment ago, the house had merely been warm. Now, it felt full, bright, alive, hopeful. In that small countryside kitchen, with steam rising from bowls and the gentle hum of night outside, something shifted between them. Not a confession, not an answer, but the beginning of a future none of them had dared to speak aloud until now.